Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, July 8th, 2024. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note the starting time for the minutes at 7 p.m. A warm welcome is extended to councillors, staff, and delegations and observers who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether being physically in the council chamber in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those viewing the meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behavior and or comments. Thank you. At this time, of course, as always, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I do have regrets tonight from two members of Council, Councillor Blazek and Councillor Duncan. Let's move to item 5 on our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. At this time, in accordance with recommended protocol, I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. I've had advance notice from Councillor Andreessen, so welcome tonight, Councillor Andreessen. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, council, staff, and members of the public. This evening I'll be declaring potential pecuniary interest on item out of correspondence number 11.2 from the Lisseau Agricultural Society regarding their request for picnic tables. This declaration is due to the fact my husband is a director on the board at the Lisseau Ag Society. And then regarding the confirmatory bylaw 17.1, I'll refrain from participating in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone else wishing to make a declaration at this time? Seeing none, let's move forward. My role as chair prompts me to manage the flow of proceedings tonight and largely in accord with our agenda. We usually do have some participating remotely by web conference. Should they wish to speak, they may draw attention to the clerk using the conferencing technology's text chat function. If technical difficulties arise for remote participants, I will advise. Let us now focus on the people's business. Part of this focus is achieved when those in the chamber silence and put away their phones. Regarding item 6 on our agenda, I have a resolution for our consideration to approve the agenda as follows. That the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call for a mover? Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Got to get my tongue working tonight. And Councillor Richardson will be our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
I'm in favor, Mayor Todd.
Councillor Rothwell has recorded a manual in favor vote. And with that, we have 8 votes, and that is carried. Thank you. Let's move then to item 7 of our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 9 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Colleagues, anything to extract here or any corrections that you would like noted for the minutes? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone wave at me, so let's consider the resolution as follows. That consent items 7.1 to 7.9 be received for information, and the minutes of the regular council meeting dated June 17th, 2024 be adopted. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Nordham, thank you. Councillor Johnston will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Councillor Anstedt records a manual in favor vote. We have 8 votes on the board, and that is carried. Thank you. Let's move at this time then to the next item on our agenda. Our agenda indicates that we will hold 2 special public meetings related to a matter under the Development Charges Act, particularly for the purpose of considering implementation of a new development charge bylaw. For the purpose of executing this public meeting, I am using my discretion as head of council to announce a recess that will last the duration of the public meeting. The recess is now in effect. All right. On behalf of council, I'd like to call this public meeting held to comply with the Development Charges Act of the Province of Ontario to order. We are duly authorized and in fact required to hold this public meeting under the auspices of Section 12 of the Development Charges Act. Welcome to all who are attending. Purpose of this meeting is to deal with a proposed municipal-wide development charge bylaw. This meeting gives the public an opportunity to ask questions, provide comments, and make representation on the proposed 2024 municipal-wide development charges bylaw. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this proposed bylaw will be considered by council. Those in attendance, whether it be in person in the council chambers or remotely, wishing to make comments concerning this plan, will be given the opportunity to do so. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this bylaw must notify the clerk via email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. And I believe there's even a sign-in form at the back of the room for those who've come physically into the chambers for this purpose. At this time, I'm going to call for a summary of this matter regarding a development charge bylaw. And this will be offered by Andrew Mirabella of Hemson Consulting, who I see sitting close to the podium. Please come forward, Mr. Mirabella, and help with our public meeting intent.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Thanks for the introduction. My name again is Andrew Mirabella, associate partner at Hemson. The purpose of today's meeting is the statutory public meeting that's being held under the Development Charges Act. So just to go through the agenda, there's effectively two public meetings that are occurring tonight. One on what we're calling is the municipal-wide DC study, which does incorporate some area-specific development charges within it. And the second public meeting is going to be specifically related to the Northeast Master Plan, the NEM development charge package. Okay, does it sound any better? Yeah, sorry. No problem. Thank you. So just to go over the purpose of today's meeting is to provide the public with an opportunity to make any representation on the proposed 2024 development charge bylaws. As mentioned here in the preamble, it is the statutory public meeting under Section 12 of the DCA. Both the background studies were both, there's two background studies that were made public, as well as two sets of bylaws were made public in advance of this meeting in accordance with the requirements of the Act. So in general, I know I've been before council before on the development charge matter, but just as an overall here for those members in the public, development charges are imposed on development to fund only growth-related capital infrastructure costs, pays for new infrastructure to maintain service levels. The principle behind this is that the growth pays for growth. So the benefiting parties will pay for the infrastructure that's related to servicing that. The development charge study process is pretty rigorous under the Act. We have to do a forecast of development, looking at the amount, type, and location of development. We have to look at all the growth-related capital infrastructure needs, and we have to look at there's this series of requirements under the Act that we have to understand what shares of costs will be deducted from the total growth-related program. So any considerations for money that development charges already have on hand, the municipality has, any series of the projects that aren't growth-related, any grants, subsidies, or other recoveries that are coming in to fund the project cost are all taken into consideration in terms of our calculation of the rate. The cost that we have there, the bottom box, are cost eligible for DC recovery. That share of cost gets delineated between the residential and non-residential sector. Residentially, the charges are on a per unit basis. Non-residentially, the charges are on a per square foot, per square meter of gross area basis. There's been a multitude of changes on the development charge legislation in recent years. The Housing Supply Action Plan and subsequent legislation, we've seen Bill 108, Bill 197, Bill 23, and most recently was Bill 185, which was the Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act, which received royal assent in June of this year. This all kind of spawned from the province's affordability task force in February 2022 as part of their election mandate to build more homes and 1.5 million new homes by 2031. Why that's important is the legislation has kind of spun in different directions in order to facilitate that. And just to be clear, with the most recent Bill 185 changes, the phase in of DCs that came in under Bill 23 has now been repealed, and that phasing is no longer required. And second to that, the eligibility of growth-related or development-related studies was also introduced as ineligible as part of Bill 23, and that got repealed and back as part of Bill 185. So studies is now, even this background study, and the municipality is not obliged to phase in their DCs. Going forward, you can institute a charge at the maximum permissible rate or anything otherwise to council's discretion. So just in terms of the forecast themselves and the development forecast, our first thing that we do in the study, there's two forecast periods that we have a 10-year forecast for most of the general services and roads and related infrastructure, which has about 2,500 new dwelling units proposed over that 10-year planning period, and about 2,270 employees over that same period, resulting in about 160,000 square meters of new building space that's forecast. On the area-specific side, or specifically for water, wastewater, we have a longer-term plan horizon moving out to 2046, which has about 5,100 dwelling units over that planning period of 2046. So certainly a fairly substantial amount of growth slated for the municipality of North Perth, and that's been included in this particular background study, infrastructure needs associated with servicing it. Then we have our growth-related capital program, and we really had a lot of conversations with municipal staff, looking at what those growth needs are. We looked at the previous DC background study, the 2024 capital budget, some of your recent master plans and ongoing studies, and we made a determination of what these growth-related capital infrastructure needs are, and then all those regulated and required reductions to the calculation in terms of your grants and your subsidies, your benefit to existing shares, available DC reserve funds, and what we call as post-period benefits have all been considered in the calculation of the rate and therefore in the adjustment to what we actually fund from development charges. And that's shown here on this particular slide. It shows the 10-year capital program for all of your general services and your roads program. So we see along the left is our services that we have, going from library services, fire, parks and recreation, public works, roads. It gives us a total cost of about $95.7 million over that period. What we have then is those different adjustment factors that we make to the calculation. And what becomes important is if you go to the DC recoverable cost component, that's the 2024 to 2033 column, we see that our cost that's been eligible for DC recovery in period is about 53.7, almost 53.9 million. So certainly an adjustment from the initial gross project cost that we had of 95.8 million. After all those considerations, most of which is related to your benefit to existing, is a DC eligible amount that's recovered in this bylaw period of about $54 million. There is that share of about 2.7 million, which we call as other development related or post period. It's going to be growth related. It can be funded from DCs. It's just not going to be recovered for this planning period. It'll be considered in your subsequent DC bylaw updates. So that's on the general side. Then we have our summary of our engineered program, which is going to be for your wastewater, your water, and your stormwater management services, which has a program of about $57.4 million. Similar columns here in terms of the way the structure works. Our net DC eligible column is going to be what's being funded in our DC planning period this time, and it's about $31.5 million, and that's the share of cost that gets attributable to development and recovered for in our calculation of the rates. So we have the next slide is just to look at what the calculated DCs are. We take into consideration the forecast, the surface level inventories, our maximum municipal funding envelopes, and those capital programs that we looked at. And then we have the rates that are differentiated by dwelling unit type. We have single to semi-detached units, broken other multiples, apartments are broken up by type of bedrooms, and special care units. Your non-residential rates are calculated in a per square meter, and it's uniform to all different types of commercial, industrial, institutional operations. So on the next slide here, it looks at what the residential calculated rates are. And I note this is for a service union. This would include all three of the engineered services components of the rate. It includes your water, your wastewater, as well as the self-use drainage area, stormwater charge that's specifically listed in that particular area. The total single detached dwelling unit charge would be $32,609. I note that the pie graph on the right looks at differentiating that dollar amount per unit by service category. And we see there that your parks and recreation services represents about 34% of the total, roads and related about 23%, your wastewater services at about 18%. So the composition of the rate is largely dependent on your hard services for your engineered services as well as your parks and recreation. And that's pretty typical from what we see from municipality to municipality that's responsible for these types of services. The charges per dwelling unit are differentiated by dwelling unit type, as I mentioned, based on the occupancy patterns within them. So you'll pay $32,600 for a single detached unit, but your apartment for one bedroom would be $12,600 to $24. On the non-residential side, keeping into consideration the same flow, the same distribution here, we have a calculated rate of $78.58 per square meter. You see that again, the pie chart on the right distributes how that $78.58 is comprised. One thing that I will note here is that the rate is, there's no parks and recreation, there's no library charge. Those are considered to be residential benefit only. So the distribution of the charge, you see, they're weighted a little bit more towards the engineered services. So roads and related has a higher relationship of the charge, similar to water and similar to wastewater. So I'm going to just, I know there's two parts of the public meeting. I'm going to skip a couple of slides. It's one presentation, but I can validate everything that we're looking for here. So this is just a comparison of the current versus calculated rates. The current rate that's in North Perth, if you take into consideration, so we have the total municipal-wide residential charge, which is in certain areas at about $14,934, and then the area-specific urban charges would be levied only on the particular areas that we're going to be receiving those services. Cumulatively, if all three of those were to be combined plus the municipal charge, that would charge about $23,488 at the current rate. The calculated rate is about $32,609, so representing an increase of about $9,000 from the current position. I will note, and I mentioned this at the draft of the council information session, the municipality has not been indexing the charges in respect to the changes in effects of inflation. With those indexing of the charges, the rate is very similar to what we see today. So some of that is just a kind of money that's consideration that's happened over the last couple of years. So then, just in terms of the rate comparison themselves, this is a comparison of single and semi-detached dwelling units. The rate comparison looks at a series of different municipalities in and around North Perth and others that have similar growth patterns and servicing requirements. It takes into consideration points that are obviously in the Perth County area, but also some of the communities in the region of Waterloo and some others in the neighborhood. We see that in North Perth, the small rate currently is kind of at the mid to lower end of the spectrum. With the calculated rates that we've calculated here, we're bringing the rates up to about $32,600, which are bringing right into the middle of the time relative to some of these other communities. The rates that are just on top here is Hagen Shores or Town of Ingersoll and the City of Woodstock. There is one consideration here that we'll get into in the next public meeting is the charge, and it's inclusive of the net area with that benefit infrastructure, which has a different calculator rate obviously associated with that. One of the things that is just before I part in this particular slide, each municipality has its own set of servicing requirements, infrastructure needs, and development trends, and that's really what sets the tone for what the DCs that are imposed in each of the municipalities. One thing that I will note here is that some of these municipalities are in the process of updating the bathroom study. We're in the process of updating their bylaws, and some are caught in the mix of having a phased-in rate because of Bill 23 and potentially having updated all their pamphlets online. So there might be some kind of condition here where for some of these municipalities might not be the most up-to-date rate with what's actually happening in the legislative world that we live in. So just a couple of caveats on the rate and what you see correctly. So then we look at the current recent calculators for your non-residential side. So currently, the municipality has exempted a large portion of their non-residential charges, with the municipal-wide services being kept at zero, and a reduction on a lot of the commercial rates for your urban area charges as well. The calculated rates that we have are $78.58 per square meter, which does seem like quite a big increase from what the currently is there, but recognizing the current position was a discounted and exempted rate from what was calculated in the previous background study. Council still has the authority under this bylaw to do what they wish with the commercial, industrial, not residential rates, and that's a matter of policy, not necessarily a matter of what gets imposed in the development charge vacuums. So just in terms of the rate comparison for commercial development, looking at the North Perth rate, this will be 24.54 currently. The calculated rate is 78.58. Recognizing the current charges at the lower end of the spectrum with the rates that we've calculated with the municipality towards the middle end of the spectrum in terms of other municipalities in terms of commercial DCs. But some municipalities make a difference in the industrial charge. That's a separate category here. So this is just strictly looking at commercial development charges in the municipality and communities as well. So this is just looking at some of the DC bylaw policy recommendations that are going to be reflected in this bylaw as well as the Northeast Master Plan one. The council is going to have to make a decision in the time of passage on what to do with the exemptions or non-statutory exemptions that are currently existing within your bylaw, and that will relate to really two key areas. One, the maintaining some of the exemptions or reductions for non-residential DCs, whether these exemptions for industrial development, further reductions for commercial development, the exemptions of some of the specific categories. Those are the types of policy initiatives that have to be looked at. The current bylaw is a base bylaw in which the exemptions don't exist, and it's a fully calculated rate that's imposed in the bylaw. It's council's ability to tell us or to dictate otherwise in terms of what we can put in. The existing bylaw also has reductions for entry-level residential units. Again, that would be a matter of council policy if we wanted to reintroduce that reduction for entry-level units. In terms of a matter of the next DC bylaw that would get imposed. Some of the conversations with staff, irrespective of the non-residential reduction on DCs, there is an appetite to maintain some of the exemptions for the modified farming operations and agriculture uses. So that is maintained within the draft policy that put forward. And one of the other things that we want to do is to put in mandated annual DC bylaw indexes. So your bylaw would be indexed annually automatically, and that's allowed for under the Act each year on a go-forward basis. So just in terms of the DC project timeline, we're at the stage, we're in the public consultation stage. We've released the background study and the bylaws for that period. The public meeting has been held tonight with the intention to seek feedback and come back to council on August 12th with a staff report, commission staff report, and the bylaw for approval. At that time, the bylaw does expire on September 1st of 2024. So it's along the same content that will happen in the next public meeting, which I won't go through in the same length, but that kind of concludes the first part of it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mirabella. I can advise certainly that notice of this public meeting was given in accordance with the provisions of the Development Charges Act. All right, this is the opportunity for public comment. Mr. Mirabella will ask you to sit down at this point. We may draw you back up here as questions arise. Anyone who wishes to make comments is now invited to do so. Those who make comments in person at this public meeting are asked to provide their name and contact information on the sign-in sheet that is available at the back of the council chambers. And as you introduce yourself in the speaking order, we ask that you share your name and your residency so we understand where you're from. I see someone has joined us at the podium, so the floor is yours.
So I'm Matt Feeney. I'm actually from West Perth, but I build in North Perth, and I'm a board member of the Huron County Builders Association. So good evening, council. I'm Matt Feeney, board member of Perth Huron Builders Association and owner of Feeney Design Build. I'm here today to ask that these development charges have a lot of consideration before a decision is made. This increase has come to quite a surprise to myself and other builders, especially after the recent building permit increase. Currently, with the new numbers proposed, you will have a very larger DC than similar Perth County towns like Stratford and St. Mary's. Currently, with the proposed development increase, a permit for a single-family home will be in the neighborhood of $40,000, A similar home in Stratford would come in at 16,000, and St. Mary's would come in about 13,000. I feel if we can keep our costs low, this will make our municipality more appealing for people to move here. I'm currently seeing this in other municipalities where fees have increased and people are deciding not to leave the Kitchener-Waterloo area because it doesn't make financial sense. If there's a possibility to get this phased in over the maximum allowable time, this will allow prices for the homes to increase in value and absorb the cost. I'd also like that these increases do not take effect till at least January 1st, 2025. There are builders in the community that have deals in play that didn't budget for these current DC charges, and there isn't enough profit into a new home build to absorb the increase. And they can't go back to the customer asking for more money. I'd also like to request a stakeholder meeting before a decision is made. I recall back in 2019 or whenever we did the last DC charge, we did have a roundtable with builders, developers, and staff. I know there's a lot of builders out here that don't even know what's going on today, because I texted one 20 minutes before this meeting and he didn't have a clue what DC charge increase was happening. I think there's got to be a lot of thought put into this, because this could stall growth in North Perth if we do it too fast, too quick. So in that, I'll close, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Feeney. I think I see our next candidate here. So again, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Chair, members of Council, and staff. First, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this evening in regards to the potential 42 to 64% increase to the development charges that have been proposed in the municipal-wide DC, as outlined in the background study prepared by Henson Consultant and dated June 13th, 2024. My name is Maria Caveris, and I'm here representing my companies PK Homes and Makem Developments. We are a small builder that have been building homes for over 30 years and building in Listowel for 15. I'm a professional engineer licensed with the Professional Engineers of Ontario and have over 20 years of municipal and land development experience. I previously worked in consulting for over 14 years and have been with PK Homes since 2017. I stay involved in my industry through my membership and involvement with the Ontario and local home builders associations. I have had the opportunity to review the background studies prepared by Henson, and as a general point, I would like to state that I'm a strong proponent that growth should pay for growth in a fair, equitable, and transparent way. However, it needs to be in a fair, equitable, and transparent way where the actual need for growth and the associated infrastructure is well defined, outlined, and illustrated clearly. It is our opinion that both background studies prepared by Henson and as presented to the public do not include enough supporting information to confirm the fairness and eligibility of each proposed project. We must ensure that affordability or attainability, fairness, and transparency is maintained in this community to ensure its future success with strong relationships with those in the community and those that build your community. I have many questions of clarification regarding this report. However, for tonight, I will highlight a few of what I would consider to be the larger ones. I know that some members of this council are very driven with the goal to provide affordable housing within this community, which is why I was shocked to see that $5,180, or over 60% of the municipal-wide DC, is tied to parks and recreation. I strongly request that Council considers the opportunity to reduce spending in this category and apply a more balanced approach to spending resident dollars. Council should also be considering if there's a capacity within the existing facilities worth over $115 million rather than building new ones. As illustrated on the figure above, I note that the increase being proposed to the municipal-wide water charge is approximately $1,400 per unit with a DC eligible budget of approximately $13 million. However, the increase to the sanitary DC is only $78, with a forecasted budget of $19.8 million of spending. How do these increases correlate? Further information and clarification, including drawings, is being requested for review. In general, the DC study lacks transparency. I have requested drawings that would illustrate a brief scope of work being proposed within each category of the DC. These are often included in other DC studies and are called project worksheets. They clearly define the scope of work, anticipated costs, and timing in a clear and transparent way. However, up until today, I have not received any. I will continue to work with staff and consultants to obtain this information. I will be speaking to you again to address the Northeast Master Plan DC background study, as this proposal directly affects lands we own on Line 87. However, recognizing that this will be addressed under a separate public meeting, I will summarize my asks as they relate to this background study as follows. 1. I ask that drawings be provided with backup calculations and further information as required related to the proposed projects outlined in this background study. And 2, I ask Council again to strongly reconsider the increase of over $5,000 per permit for Parks and Recreation under this proposed DC bylaw. If passed, over 1/3 of the DC fee, that is $11,145 of the proposed $31,000 fee, would be allocated to Parks and Recreation. Does recreation truly represent the top priority for Council within this municipality? I appreciate and thank you for your time, and I'm happy to attempt to answer any questions you may have at this time. I don't know if there's any questions.
Okay. Let me get the right cameras here. All right, colleagues, there is an opportunity certainly for you to ask questions of both the consultant, staff, and delegations who are here. We've had two. Are there other delegates who wish to present at this time? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So let's begin then the opportunity for council to ask questions, and we'll trust in the goodwill of the two delegates if questions are asked that are relevant for you, that you'd come forward and help us with that. All right, questions or comments from council? Councillor Rothwell, let me get your microphone here. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Todd, members of council, staff, and public. Thanks very much for the presentation from consulting. I'm wondering if you could describe for us, this is the draft bylaw itself, but on the schedule which shows the listable area, I note that some of the lands that we considered recently through official plan amendments are not included in that area. So this is specifically on Improved 186 west of the boundary that we currently have on the project. If we have developments, well, thanks very much for putting this on screen, Chris. The area that I'm talking about is on the west side, the left side of that page, and it's west of the Baptist Church. We have the official plan amendments there. So that's one area, as well as the municipally owned area that's on the north side of 86, which we hope under the county official plan will be allocated for residential growth in part. If council adopts this bylaw, how do we address development charges in those two areas, as well as any other areas that will be coming through the county official plan here?
Hopefully this coming year. Do we have to amend this or at that time, or how do we address that? Through you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we might turn to Mr. Marvell on this first.
Through the chair, if the map is specific in terms of the benefiting area, then there may have to be an amendment to the bylaw to adjust the map. But we can speak with staff in terms of looking at the defined areas that might be in the potential inclusion. So there might be a kind of a modified amendment or no amendment should that come forward.
I appreciate that. I just think it's important that we have that conversation with staff and the consultant to make sure that, in fact, those areas that should be identified are identified. I'm just not, I'm more confident about this area that would be west of that area of the Baptist Church. The Bray property is, council has dealt with that official plan amendment. It's for a planned subdivision of approximately 300 units. So, I mean, it's a clear indication of growth, and we have not seen the planned subdivision application as yet, as I recall, but certainly the official plan amendment has been approved by county council. So I think that's the issue of most concern to me and perhaps council. But I'll stop my questions there. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Colleagues, anyone else? Councillor Johnston?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know who the question's for, but it's about Mr. Feeney's presentation. And thank you, Maria and Matt, for your diligence and your work. The idea of a roundtable with stakeholders and staff to me sounds like a really good idea to go over this in depth. How do we set that up? I believe it was done last time in 2019, Mr. Feeney brought up. So I think it sounds like a great idea, which spawns a second question that if we end up delaying a little bit because of that, what happens if we haven't adopted this by September 1st when the old bylaw runs out? Do we just not charge DCs at that point? Or I know that's the easier question likely to answer.
Yeah, so through the chair, so we did do a roundtable industry consultation in 2019. That is still on the table this time around. I mean, we're very open to it. Part of this public meeting process is to kickstart the consultation process. So we can work with staff on setting up a day with the industry. I don't perceive that the industry consultation would require a delay, but there is a backup council meeting after the 12th on the 26th, which we could bring the bylaw forward for council adoption at that time. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I think that stakeholder meeting sounds a great idea and very important to me that we have it.
Is there a sense that members of council or the mayor and deputy mayor or some combination of that should be in attendance at the same? I don't think that happened in 2019 because I don't remember being invited. So I'm just asking the question more of my colleagues, but if Mr. Feeney, you'd like to offer comment on that.
He was there.
So, yeah, I was there, and I was a small guy in the room, hard to believe. But yeah, there was a lot of, well, from what I remember from that meeting, there was key developers, key builders, Ed Ponovich, the CBO, and maybe one else. But the people that are making the decisions are you guys. So I think you guys need to hear from us would be key.
I certainly, if I might argue that this is our opportunity to hear from the community broadly. I don't disagree that there could be a good opportunity for staff and the consultant to meet with developers. I'm just asking the hypothetical question, should some combination of council or at least one representative of council be in attendance? I don't know the answer at this point, but I'll turn to my colleagues. My computer just shut me out, so give me a second here before I get too much further. All right. Colleagues, any other questions or comments at this point? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I know that a lot of work has gone into this report, and I thank all those involved in preparing that, and for all the builders and developers who are keenly interested in what we're doing. I do have a question perhaps to debate on, and that's just around affordable housing. And I don't have any answers or thoughts on this yet, but I guess I have a question. The question is or are development charges the vehicle for helping with affordable housing? I don't know the answer to that. Or are there other means to do that as a municipal council? I don't know who would answer that, but
I do,
that's the
actually.
question I have.
Yeah, thank you. I do know who I'd like to try to answer this. Ms. McLean, sorry you're sitting there, and I think you have some information about this subject matter that is probably worth council hearing with regards to DCs and how they intersect with affordability of housing. So please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So there is the provincial legislation that does waive development charges on affordable units that meet the definition that has been set by the province. As well, as council is aware, we are working on the Attainable Housing Community Improvement Plan. So in that plan, there are incentives that are proposed that would provide grants to incentivize affordable and attainable housing. For example, the building permit fee, there's a tax program. There's also a DC program in the CIP, the draft version, that would provide benefit. However, as the CIP is currently drafted, that would only come into effect if the provincial policies were waived or rescinded, sorry.
So could I have a secondary question? So if I may, that it's possible to have vehicles to support affordable housing by development charges targeting specific affordable housing projects. Is that what you're saying is possible?
So if through you, Mr. Mayor, if the units proposed met the rental rates that the province has set, they've set out a bulletin that has these numbers for each municipality, that would come into place. And I'm not sure if the consultant or treasurer could answer anything else on that.
So in a sense, that's an exemption. Would that be how it would work? Or a partial exemption?
I think generally, at least my read of this, and let me just test this with Ms. McLean, is that, one avenue would be to do something about a global reduction in DCs, right? But that affects all housing, from affordable to, the ultra mega projects that cost enormous amounts of money. And then there's vehicles, including the CIP that's been proposed to this council, that allows a more targeted approach to incentivizing those who will develop affordable in accord with provincial policy. And so there's a choice here, right? It's a political choice to some degree, at least that's my impression. I'll turn to Mr. Romani or to Mr. Mirabella if you want to offer any further comments besides what Ms. McLean has offered. You're welcome to on this topic.
She was accurate in the development charge exemptions and everything, so.
All right, thank you. He declares Ms. McLean's comments accurate. Thank you. We hire consultants to help us with that. Councillor Rothwell next.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and I think Councillor Andreessen has raised a very important point. I think we have to understand, though, that any exemptions that are given locally are going to be underwritten by our local taxpayers. It's not provincially, it's not nationally, even though there's programs been talked about and discussed. It's any relief, if you will, that's given is going to be paid for by all the taxpayers of North Perth, which is wonderful to think about. But when everyone else is dealing with affordability issues as well, truly, if we all help some, we can do our best. But we already have built in an exemption under our current bylaw, as was discussed, dealing with very entry-level units. I think it was discussed, but the number rings in my head about like 800 square feet or something of that magnitude. So they are truly small. That doesn't help a family of four or substantially or greater numbers. So that's the concern that I have here, is that we can talk and we can do our best, and certainly the CIP and the work that their staff are doing are important frameworks. But we as council haven't, and staff, we haven't put our heads together to put the budget amounts of what it is that we're potentially looking at. So I don't want to give false hope here to the community to say that this is going to be a great program that's going to offer substantial relief. I'm just not sure of the magnitude, and I don't want to, I'm not saying anything out of school here that because we haven't got the numbers. That hasn't been. We haven't really rolled up our sleeves and looked at that yet. But I think it's a very important thing, and we obviously knew it was important back in 2019, or else we wouldn't have included that. The Mayor's Housing Task Force on Affordability made one of these recommendations. So, and Council, to their credit, embarked on that. I have no idea how many units took advantage of that number, but at least it was there. And that's what I'll say. And I think we have the same issue of our consideration here this tonight and in later meetings as to the extent of which all of North Perth can pay for this exemption, if you will.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I'm hoping that this discussion is helpful for those here and listening in terms of builders and developers, because the comments were made about affordability, and we all want that, but it's, you know, through the comments Councillor Rothwell shared, it's very difficult to do that, and it's really through focused projects that it's only possible, and really not through overall development charges will we ever achieve affordable housing. So I'm glad that we're having the discussion so there can be a better understanding about that. Thank you.
All right, other colleagues with questions, comments at this point? Councillor Nordham.
Thanks, and through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Something caught my eye, Appendix B111, just talking about a centralized public works facility with development charges. I'll just be quick. I do have a little bit of concern with moving towards centralized public works facilities. Just figured I'd say that right now. I'm sure we'll hear about it later on, so thank you.
That kind of jumped us into the hole in the ground, but we're not sure what that means. So let me turn to perhaps the treasurer on this one. In the report, there is something about centralized public works facilities. Did you want to comment about this matter? Because I think we should have some idea of how that was used as the basis for some calculation, if it was.
So through Mayor Kaysenberg, I don't have the details, like CEO Snell, unfortunately, is not here tonight, or Mr. Couch, that would have the details on the specific project. So I can't comment in great detail on what the specifics of it is, but that would essentially, the way it's included is in a forecast, and yeah, I'd refrain from speaking any further as I don't have the details.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mirabella, do you have any recollection of how that got in there and what the intent was from our team?
Yeah, so through the chair, and obviously we can let both the CAO and the director speak to it in a little bit more details, but that was a project that was in the previous background study in terms of consolidating some of the operations, but also looking to expand the facility itself. So we have the project in there, but recognizing that a big portion of that project is about just replacing existing space. So there's a kind of a 25% share that's related to growth in terms of expanding the facility. So it's been a project that's been in the pipeline in the municipality for at least the last background study, and we've carried it forward, and the intention is to still do that, but it is still a couple years out, well into the planning period. And certainly if that project changes in scope in terms of not centralizing it, but just continuing the expansion, those monies that are in the background study can be used for that expansion, recognizing that that was the intention of the initial project, and it could be revamped through future considerations of council in the next background study.
So if I might, just to be colloquial, as we grow, we may need another snowplow and a place to park that snowplow. I'm assuming that that's what you're talking about, that kind of circumstance.
It's the expansion of your facilities, correct?
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
As a result of growth.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. When I took a look at the roads section of this report, I noticed information on the truck bypass, which is great. I didn't see anything about roundabouts, and presumably roundabouts might be provincial highway, but I didn't know if there was any kind of municipal responsibility with roundabouts. So I was wondering if that was an error and it was excluded, or if it's not required because it's more provincial.
Mr. Couch is not here. CEO Snell is not feeling well today. I don't know whether Mr. Mirabella has any insight into whether roundabouts were considered, although I think the ones that are certainly on the near event horizon are all on provincial highways at this point. Anything beyond that?
Yeah, nothing further really to add about the road-specific programs itself. It was developed with the director and also in consultation with the Transportation, the Roads Master Plan, with the direction of the project. But some of the immediate projects might be on the provincial side, but we can take that comment back and look into it in further details if there's anything missed. We can certainly add to it. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Kellum, let me just get your microphone here. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. And circling back to Mr. Feeney's request and Councillor Johnson's comments, is there going to be a roundabout discussion, or is this it tonight? I don't know who can answer that.
You mean another discussion with industry? Is that what you're asking? Okay.
Yes.
So the question is, have you planned, as part of the consultation plan, to have a meeting with industry after this meeting to review these things? Or is there opportunity for us to invite you to do that? Maybe this is, it's one of the two of you.
Yeah, that's right. Through the chair. So this is the formal public meeting. There is opportunity following this for informal public consultation, which is, based on the comments received today, that is the intention to do that. Last time in 2019 we did that. It depends on the feedback of the municipality and the industry, and it sounds like they want to have a meeting, and we're very open to do that. And we have built that time into the schedule in order to do that. Thank you. Okay. So we will be coordinating with staff to do that.
All right. I think it will be fair, of course, to keep council apprised of the date and planning on that so that we're aware when it happens, that kind of thing. Anyone else with comments? Councillor Rothwell, last one here. Go ahead.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. And just further, Justin McLean had mentioned some new information I think that she's received, and it's related to this item, but it's a broader issue, I believe. Is the information that has been received from the province, is this the long-awaited discussion or definition of affordability? Is what's come out, or is it something different than that? Thank you.
Through the chair, I'm not sure if I can answer that definitely. It is a bulletin related to the Development Charges Act, and it includes the cost for purchase or renting in the municipality that would be considered affordable. So it does have kind of a definition of how they calculated those numbers, but I can't say for certain if that's the official definition that they're releasing, but staff could look into that.
Thanks very much.
I think there is enthusiasm for that report, actually, that there seems to be some movement, at least in circles that I'm in, towards saying that is the new definition. And it involves a 60% number in the income range, amongst other things. So if you haven't yet had the opportunity, colleagues, to look at this, it's probably worth seeing. It is targeted towards development charges. There's no question that that's its intent. But at the same time, it does look like it's the province's response to the question of please define affordable housing. So.
Just
go ahead.
Last point, Mayor Todd, thanks very much. But how can I say? If many municipalities, if everyone is looking for a definition, I would think it would be very important for the province of Ontario to actually gift wrap and say, this is what it is. And if it is what we're hoping for, well, then tell us that we're not expecting something else. Because, I mean, yes, this is our DC meeting and so on. It's very important to hear this information here this evening. Wonderful. But it impacts us far greater than just on DC side. So I'll just encourage our through the mayor, our staff, to have discussions directly with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. I believe that's where the definition would have come from. Then tell us exactly what it is. I mean, the province of Ontario, it will certainly have all kinds of announcements that come out that may or may not necessarily be of particular importance. But in this one, this council in the past has made very clear that we want to hear directly from the province and encourage them to do so. So, and perhaps through our MPP, we can hear that directly. Thank you very much.
A little of a sidebar, but I appreciate the sentiment. All right, anyone else with final questions about this matter? All right. Council will consider this bylaw at a future meeting of Council. Notice of the decision of Council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Development Charges Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with provisions of the Development Charges Act. At this time, this meeting is adjourned. All right. Remember that old song, second verse, same as the first? A little bit louder, in this case maybe a little bit smaller, a little bit worse, I don't know, hope not. We're going to do it again. We're going to talk about the Northeast Master Plan in a new public meeting that I am convening, calling to order. Welcome to those who are attending the public meeting pursuant to Section 12 of the Development Charges Act. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with the proposed Northeast Master Plan, or NEMP, Development Charge Bylaw. The purpose of this meeting is to give the public the opportunity to ask questions, provide comments, and make representation on the proposed 2024 Northeast Master Plan Development Charges Bylaw. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this proposed bylaw will be considered by Council. Those in attendance, whether it be in person in the Council chambers or remotely wishing to make comments concerning this plan, will be given the opportunity to do so. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this bylaw must notify the clerk via email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number, or have recorded themselves on the sign-in sheet that is at the back of the Council chamber. Mr. Mirabella has been with us so far, and he's been a pleasant face standing there. We invite his pleasant face and voice in person to continue by telling us about this one, the Northeast Master Plan.
Thank you, Mayor. So this one presentation will be a lot shorter. I've done all the background, a lot of the information already. So we'll just dive into the details, the same parameters in terms of the calculation methodology, the eligibility of growth-related costs that I spoke about is all still very much applicable in the Northeast Master Plan area. So just in terms of some of the details, just to keep in mind, this is a very scoped area in terms of the infrastructure requirement and then the servicing needs and the benefiting population and employment. This deals with 4 categories: water, wastewater, stormwater management services, and roads and related infrastructure. The total gross cost of the infrastructure that's going to service this area is $27.9 million. As I mentioned in the previous section here, the allocation of costs is also shown. The other recoveries column is about $10.2 million, and that represents the share of costs that are going to be allocated and recovered through the lot sales in the Moore subdivision, as well as a portion of that is going to be recovered from the municipal-wide DC study, which is the Davidson Road. So within that $27.9 million, that's the total cost. We've made the adjustment for those other recoveries. There's also an adjustment for the benefit to existing share of about $6.8 million. There's very limited funds available in the reserve fund, which brings us to our net DC eligible cost of about $9.7 million. That $9.7 million is what is being allocated for recovery through development. That's the DC eligible component development in this background study. The other development related share is about $1.1 million that's going to be recovered through future background studies, and it's tied to some potential lands that might come on stream. So we've allocated some cost to it, so it's not all being recouped from development proceeding within this planning horizon. There's a population growth or estimated within this area of about 1,100 people and about 350 employees in addition to what would be done through the Moore subdivision lands. This is going to be net new employment in the DC recoverable charge area. So that gives us a calculated rate on the residential side of about $24,757. The rate is again distributed or delineated by dwelling unit type. For rows, apartment units and special care, the non-residential charge per square meter is $148 per square meter of gross floor area. Again, that's the maximum permissible charge directly related to that specific infrastructure in order to recover those particular costs. I showed this slide before. Just the bottom line on this one is really just the NEM charge that's there. The current rate that's imposed is about $6,300. The calculated rate is $24,757 for a single detached unit. So a considerable rate increase on the total charge. The infrastructure needs are much more defined in this background study than it was in 2019, which is setting the stage for the difference that we're seeing here in terms of the calculation of the charge itself. So just on the rate comparison, you'll see that we talked about the charges in the current versus and calculated and listable. And then I have the NEMP charge, which is calculated at the top, and we'll see that part as a red part of the bar. Just noting that just takes the total charge that we had from the middle line there, the listable charge, and just adding the NEMP charge. You would only get levied the areas, the charges that are applicable to your area. So if you're within the Northeast Master Plan area, you'll pay that rate, but you may not pay some of the other rates that are related to it. So specifically the Southeast Drainage Area rate might not be applicable in that particular area. So just as a note there, but that need or that rate would put that particular area on the higher end of the spectrum relative to some of the other communities. But again, it's recognizing it's the localized infrastructure that's required there and the benefiting parties associated with it. On the non-residential side, it is a charge of $148, which is calculated. The current charge in that area is $27.23. Again, similar to the residential side, there is a considerable increase there, recognizing that this background study and this time around, there's a lot more quantification of the infrastructure needs associated with that area, which translates to both the residential and non-residential development charge that has been calculated. So similar slide here on the commercial development, the North Perth with the NEMP calculated rate is the one in red, and it would put the municipality, any development in that area would be on the higher end of the spectrum, less than some of the communities in the region of Waterloo, but still quite competitive with other municipalities on the commercial rates as well. So council would have a similar set of policies to consider as part of the Northeast Master Plan area in terms of the development charges bylaw, in terms of the considerations for the non-statutory exemptions, as well as the annual indexing provisions and any other considerations that council wishes to look at as part of that in terms of any transitionary provisions that have been talked about by the industry that would be applicable and be considered from both the municipal-wide as well as the Northeast Master Plan area of DC bylaws. We are working on a similar timeline here in terms of the statutory public meeting being held today, with the bylaws being hopefully considered for passage in the month of August. We have had some consultation with the industry on this bylaw, and presumably that dialogue will continue following this meeting as well, and we're happy to do that. So that concludes this portion of the presentation. Again, streamlined it a little bit, recognizing you've heard everything already from the previous one.
All right, thank you, Mr. Maribella. Notice of this public meeting was given in accordance with the provisions of the Development Charges Act. This is the opportunity again for those who wish to make comment to do so. We invite you to ensure that your name is signed and your contact information on the sign-in sheet that's available on the desk, or you've reached out to the clerk separately for that purpose already. And so those who wish to make comments at this hour may do so. Again, if you'd just introduce yourself and tell us just enough so that we have context, that's appreciated.
Good evening again.
Yeah.
My name is still Maria Caveras, and I'm here representing my companies, PK Homes and Makem Developments. As previously mentioned, I have had the opportunity to review both background studies, and again, I reiterate that it is our opinion that both studies prepared by Hemson as unpresented to the public do not include enough supporting information to confirm the fairness and eligibility of each proposed project. First, I would like to note that I'm a civil engineer, and I truly appreciate the need to add substantial infrastructure for expansion within this area and throughout the municipality as a whole. And as I mentioned previously, I believe in growth playing for growth, as it should not fall on existing residents to pay for this. However, the future residents that will someday be calling this area home also need to be protected. As these individuals do not have a voice at this time, I will do my best to represent them. First and foremost, given the quantity of infrastructure required to be constructed and maintained for this area, I would assume that the maximum benefit to the community would be explored. What I mean is that if you're going to be building roads, water mains, pumping stations, would you not want the maximum number of units and people using this infrastructure? You wouldn't want to have a pumping station beside two other pumping stations. This costs money to build and money to maintain. I would strongly ask Council to ensure that every avenue has been explored to maximize the number of people benefiting from the proposed infrastructure a part of this study, to save everyone time and money now and in the future. As it is proposed right now, and as you may be aware, the current DC in the Northeast Master Plan for a single detached unit is approximately $28,000, and the proposed rate is $55,532. I will say that again, $55,532. That is a 100% increase for a single detached unit, 130% increase for semi and other multiples, and 121% for an apartment. Please note that this does not include the actual building permit itself, whose rate went up recently by over $1 per square foot and now has a minimum payment of $4,066. With the cost of a permit that makes the fee to obtain a building permit within this area almost $60,000. As a quick comparison to other communities, as demonstrated in the figure in front of you, the development charges for a single detached unit in the City of London is approximately $47,000. That is almost $10,000 cheaper per unit for a city with a population of over 500,000 people. And in the City of Kitchener, which includes the region of Waterloo, DC, a two-tier system, the DC is approximately $59,000, almost on par with what is being proposed in Listowel, a community with almost 1/50th of the population. And in the City of Guelph, $65,000, only $7,500 more per single, in a community that is less than an hour from the GTA. I have asked for clarity around assumptions made in the background study prepared by Hemson, including but not limited to project sheets with drawings that outline the scope of the projects being proposed, clarity around level of service and how it applies, how the moorlands will be charging development charges to the buildings being proposed within this development, and how costs are being allocated between DC eligible and benefits to existing. I have not received clear answers on all my questions. However, I would appreciate the opportunity to continue to work with staff and their consultants. I would like to conclude my delegation with a couple requests and one comment. First, I would request that Hemson and others as required review and reply to my previous requests and answer questions as presented tonight, especially the ask for drawings and further information related to the scope and nature of the proposed projects within this background study. Furthermore, confirmation through real backup calculations and drawings that the engineering of the proposed infrastructure is efficient and maximized. I would welcome the opportunity to meet with them and my own consultants to ensure that all the information is clear and transparent. Second, I would ask Council tonight to truly consider what an increase to the DC of this magnitude does to its community and what message it sends. I would also ask that priorities around spending are considered to provide the best return of investment to current and future residents. I appreciate the need for expansion and growth, and I commit to my fair share, but please consider the term fair. Finally, I would like to rack up my delegation with a comment and acknowledgement around the very large push in this municipality for affordability. This goal of affordability, often spoken around this very room, then followed up with a meeting like tonight, where development and building fees increases are being proposed to double or more, feels very contradicting. I ask you to consider how these two things correlate and what message this sends. I also ask that you consider working with the community and its building group in a collaborative way where decisions are being made around sound business and community judgment to solve this issue we all have in front of us. We will all move faster forward together. I appreciate and thank you for your time, and again, I'm happy to attempt to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, colleagues, I'm not sure that we're there yet. Let's just see if anyone else in the audience wishes to offer comment or whether we have anyone online who's been registered for that purpose. Okay, anyone in the audience wishing to comment on this one? All right, colleagues, any questions, comments that you'd like to make at this hour? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I too would like to see a separate roundtable, especially for this NEMP up here, like with the builder specified, and for some of those reports to come back for providing that level of clarity for their satisfaction. I think that would be very important, and I'm quite concerned with the level of increase that is coming along with this as well, and I would like to see that every efficiency is made to try and maximize that, because that is a lot. And a good point was made at the podium that on one hand, we beat the drum of affordability, but then whether hand in hand with building permit rates, development charges, it makes it incredibly difficult. I get it, but it makes it incredibly difficult to have both of those conversations at the same time. It's almost impossible. So, but I do think that a roundtable, especially with the developer that was making a presentation this evening, and providing that other information that is required just for everyone's awareness and to do that. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Richardson. Anyone else wishing to make comments at this point? Questions? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Since 2019, this municipality hasn't been increasing DCs, development charges, and we haven't been keeping pace with inflationary costs. And to some degree, we're paying for that now, because as we look at these development charges, indexing hasn't happened. And, basically we'll be catching up and having to do that catch up in the next round. And certainly that, everyone will pay the price for that, I think, moving forward with these development charges. And it really goes to show that indexing probably is going to be very important moving forward to make sure that we're not caught in a similar predicament, I guess, with not keeping pace with inflationary costs.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone else with comments or questions? I have one. I'm hoping that our team can respond to this. The development of the Northeast Master Plan, one of the significant challenges or hurdles, as I understand it, and my understanding is fairly simple, is that the land was low in terms of topography, and that there was a need for significant investment in wastewater infrastructure and water infrastructure to service that land. And those costs have ballooned, I can say quite honestly, from my first moment as mayor, when I was told it was probably a $10 or $12 million project, to today, when it's a substantially higher project, as I understand it. Can you comment on whether the municipality could essentially abandon continuing the development of the wastewater infrastructure and turn over responsibility for that to developers who wish to develop there.
So through the chair, I won't speak to the specifics of the engineering. I just don't have that information. However, through general project delivery, the DCs is one avenue to explore to recoup the costs. Should the municipality look to get a developer to front end the infrastructure, that is an avenue that could be undertaken through the Act, and in which case the developer will receive credits when they pull their permits. But so that offloads the infrastructure requirements to the landowner, the developer to do the work, and they would get reimbursed through the building permits and then recovery credits on their development charges.
Okay, so it is possible, if I'm following what you're saying, to sort of sweep away the development charge for an area, especially since it seems to be driven in large part by a specific kind of servicing that's required here.
Yes, there would be cost sharing agreements, and obviously there's a complexity to it, but that's just with any piece of infrastructure. You would still have a background study to support the crediting arrangement. However, should the municipality look at entering into an agreement with the developer to place that infrastructure on their behalf, then they would receive the credits for it.
I see. Okay, thank you. That's it for me. Anyone else with questions or comments? All right, let me read the usual note here. Council will consider this bylaw at a future meeting of Council. Notice of the decision of Council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Development Charges Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with provisions of the Development Charges Act. And with that, we can adjourn this meeting. All right, there's no immediate business related to these items, but let's call Council back into its regular session at this hour. That recess that I declared earlier has now been has been completed, and we are back in session. That brings us to agenda item number 9, which is reports from departments and key staff. We have a few items tonight from the Development and Protective Services Department. Let's tackle them one by one. I'm thinking we'll call a brief break sometime around 8:30, 8:35, so we might get through one or two of these at this point. Let's look at item 9.1.1. Planning staff from the County of Perth have brought forward an amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw to support the proposed development of a farm labor residence as proposed by Patterson Planning Consultants on behalf of Frank and Melanie Van Newland. County of Perth Planner Nathan Garland, who works on North Perth files, is with us to provide an overview and a recommendation. Welcome, Planner Garland.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kiesenberg and members of North Perth Council. I don't have a formal presentation on this, as Council has seen this a couple times now, but this is just bringing forth the on-farm accommodations that Council has supported previously. The County of Perth has also supported the official plan amendment, so that is now in force and effect because there were no appeals on that official plan. So just for Council's information. So I am bringing forward the request to amend the zoning bylaw at this time to allow for a special agricultural zone to allow for the 10 units of the on-farm accommodation. Currently, the building permit, just for Council's information, is currently in for review right now as well too. So I know the applicants are looking forward to this, subject to Council's support tonight. So I'm happy to address or answer any questions. However, nothing formal.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garland. Questions or first comments on this matter? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through you, thanks very much, Nathan, for your report. I noticed in the draft bylaw there's no provision for any parking requirements. I find that odd. I mean, the expectation obviously is that people aren't going to be walking or biking to this location. They're living here. Is that going to be a site plan issue and so on? I mean, if there's no minimum requirement for any parking space for these 10 units, I'm surprised there's not at least a few parking spaces.
Through the chair, in response to the question, I guess that we had accepted that allowance just because it is a fairly large agricultural property. They are provided a car for that use. There is no formal site plan agreement required as part of this, so it just would have to meet the building code and accessibility requirements for that as part of any kind of building permit application. So we didn't enforce it through the site plan application through dedication or noting on the plan, etc., it was expected that they would provide for that on site, just based on the size of the property. I'm happy to amend that too as well. I don't think that's a deal breaker.
Through you, from a planning standpoint, I think there should be at least, some comment about it, that there should be parking provided, even if we don't put a specific number to it, there should be parking provided on site, because again, it is a large operation. There's no doubt. It's just a matter that there's a whole lot of buildings, and we saw the plans, obviously, both through the official plan amendment as well as the zoning. It's just a matter that, as I understand, this is the first of what we could see of others, and clearly you don't want to have parking become an issue off-site. That's all. Thanks.
Through the chair, we're happy to respond back to the consultants and the proponent on this. One, requesting for the parking. I think part of their hesitation was, as part of the zoning bylaw, it does require minimum parking units as well as accessible units for any kind of allocation for that. I think they hesitated away from it, but at the same time, that's up to council's direction. I'm happy to. I don't think it's a major concern from that end.
Okay. I do think that Councillor Rothwell's right, that this is the first of a few more that we may see. And if we have anything of a policy vacuum around this, we should make sure we close that. I'm not sure there is. I'm trying to follow if we think there is a policy vacuum, but if there is, we should probably be thinking about it.
Through the chair, the zoning does speak to parking requirements, meeting a minimum standards. This would exempt that from there, so that's the request that's coming forward at this time. As mentioned, just based on the size and the nature of the operation, I don't think we were trying to hold them to a standard that meet the zoning bylaw, just because they probably will be sharing a number of vehicles. There won't be one dedicated parking space per, I'll say, unit, just from that end. So there was that flexibility that was extended. However, should they need to do it, I think they can accommodate on site quite easily, would be my comment.
Councillor Rothwell.
If I may, Mayor Todd, through you, just suggest that I'm not necessarily asking for a specific requirement, although if staff wants to look at that in the future, but just as long as there's discussion between staff and the applicants to make this application move forward, that they are going to provide parking on site, appropriate parking on site. I mean, I think that at least would be a discussion that would show that they know that they need to provide it, and they should be providing it in close proximity to the location where people are going to be living. I think that's probably appropriate. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the update there. All right, it looks like Mr. Garland's making notes. Anyone else with questions or first comments before we consider the resolution? Okay, I have a resolution as follows, that North Perth Council receives the report dated July 8th, 2024, entitled North Perth Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z03-2024, submitted by Patterson Planning Consultants, Inc. on behalf of Frank and Melanie Van Newland, affecting lands described as Lot 20, Concession 17, Elma Ward in North Perth, municipally known as 5734, line 57. And that North Perth Council approves zoning bylaw amendment ZBA-03-24, affecting the lands described above to rezone the lands from Agriculture A to Special Agricultural Zone 81 or A81. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Nordham, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. It's related to our previous meeting here on DCs and building fees were discussed. This is the first one that we've been dealing with. I'm just wondering if staff has talked about how they're actually going to be dealing with the building permit fees and DCs related to a 10-unit farm labor, how we're going to quantify that. Like, have we had that conversation?
Sorry, I'm not even sure it's fair to ask Mr. Garland this question because he's sort of works for the county, kind of out of the loop here.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I was going to defer it to staff on that because typically DCs are allocated during the building permit time. That's when they come in and have that discussion. I am not an expert in that. I probably am not qualified to provide that kind of direction or comments. So, and no, we have not had that conversation with either the building official staffs or through the applicants at this time. So.
Okay. Thanks very much. It was just a question there. I mean, as I said earlier, I suspect we're going to see others like this. And my review of the information, certainly what we had presented both here tonight on the DC side, as well as certainly on the which specifically exempts bona fide farms, by the way. But I think that was more for farm buildings as opposed to residences. That's my comment. And then certainly building permits, I'm just not sure how we're going to quantify this, whether this is an apartment with 10 units or what it's going to be. So I'm sure staff will have that conversation, and I think council might be interested in future as to how we're going to quantify that. Thank you very much.
I think it might be some new policy development, actually. That's my hunch. All right. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, this is duly moved and seconded. Let's have this vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's let Mr. Garland leave before we take our break. So, Mr. Garland, come back up. Item 9.1.2. This is pertaining to an amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw to release a holding provision in current parcel zoning. This release will take place on property in the Elma ward, known municipally as 5651 Perth Line 86 in North Perth, as proposed by R.J. Burnside as agents for Killam REIT. Mr. Garland, please explain.
Thank you very much for your consideration, members of North Perth Council. I am here to present Zoning Bylaw Amendment 08, 2024. This is for a lift of holding provision provided by the owners, Killam REIT, and then the applicant is R.J. Burnside, and the agent is the same. So this is for on the east side of Listowel as part of the mobile home or community, and so they are requesting to lift the holding. And I'll flip through my slides now. So the requested area is along the southern portion of the subject property. It is a request to lift the holding provision. Currently, that holding provision is in place, subject to the requirement for a site plan agreement. They are going through the site plan agreement at this time, so it's very near completion. I think it's with either senior staff or the lawyers at this time to get registered on title. But overall, the extent as far as servicing, construction, design standards, site plans have been approved and signed off on staff, and the applicant has accepted that as well too. The holding provision would be lifted for the entire subject property, so that would allow for the development to move along in the future, amend the future site plan agreement, so they would be allowed to update as they go along or as things change. The current phase that they're proposing at this time is for approximately 26 units and includes a stormwater management pond as well too. And I'll just flip and show council a site plan application. That's the site plan that they're coming through at this point in time, so that's that gray shaded out area. Small cul-de-sac coming in there, so fire has reviewed that as well as building and servicing staff. And then there is that stormwater management pond. You'll have to reorient. That's at the southernmost side of the site. So Highway 86 is at the north end. That's the right-hand side. And then the southern part of the site is on there as well too. So there will be one little road coming in there as well as one, I'll say dead end right now, or hammerhead potentially with a cul-de-sac on there. And then that's the 26 units that they're proposing at this time. And the stormwater would service that, I believe, as well as some of the surrounding blocks that are currently developed there as well too. I'll just give a quick, happy to flip back to that. There's just some of the work that's actually undergoing at this time. So currently they are doing some pre-grading work and installation of services in advance of the site plan agreement. The site plan agreement really just kind of stops them prior to getting the building permit application. So they have been working with staff to making sure that the services have been installed correctly, as well as any kind of there's a requirement to deposit the money as well too prior to some of that work taking place. So that is taking place also, as I understand it. Comments provided. So the request is to lift the holding prior to them developing and placing actual units on the site and finalizing that. The site plan agreement is being finalized as we speak. So the applicants have currently signed it and it is ready to be registered on title. And then the property would be rezoned from a MH-3 holding provision to an MH holding provision, which allows them to do the future development. So staff are supportive of the application when we ask that council receive the report and that council consider this for your approval. I'm happy to address or answer any questions at this time.
Okay, colleagues, questions or first comments on this one? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through you, that screen's... anyways, thanks very much for the report, Nathan, and you answered our question. It would have been great to have that sketch and showing the number of units within. Perhaps other members of council were called or emailed about some concerns that current residents have within the mobile modular home park. As I understand, it's a land lease scenario. So the individuals own their building and lease the land from Killam, as I understand. The extent of comments that I had received were people were concerned that there was little or no discussion with the land lease people, the residents within the area, and there were concerns with respect to the number of trees that were being taken down and so on, which I understand there is no control over. Perhaps you can confirm that. Certainly from a development standpoint, we've talked about seeing this land developed for quite some time. And as I understand through your presentation, Nathan, that the 26 units are the first phase of what we could see into the future. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I certainly don't know how plans for what their future holds. They do show a conceptual plan for the future layout of the subdivision development, et cetera. It could be a first phase. It could be considered for future higher intensity as part of a land linkage or something to that effect. But yes, it could continue on. Currently, it is zoned and designated for the mobile home park, so that would be the extent or expectation right now that future phase or future development would occur through future mobile homes. In response to the secondary question, I believe with respect to some of the residents' comments, we were passed along a comment with respect to some of the tree cutting. Staff did explore that and review that. It did fall below the county tree cutting threshold bylaw for what covers a treed area. Additionally, it is allocated for development, so there is some exemptions as part of the tree cutting bylaw as well too.
Just my last comment, and it's related to this, but it goes back to, if we could just go to the in your presentation, the sketch that shows the proposed development. I'm just going to go off on a limb here a little bit, but council may not all know this, but municipal services were extended directly through to this property, again to the top of this site goes to adjacent property. And so this is, the village now is on full municipal services. And my concern from a council standpoint here is that perhaps Killam Properties could be to have a conversation in terms of seeing a higher density on the balance of the property and perhaps not on a mobile modular home park scenario to take advantage of the fact that we have full municipal services as opposed to having a relatively low density here. So it's unrelated to the direct in terms of the lifting of the modular or the holding provision, but as I understand, because in the we didn't actually see a schedule to the bylaw, but we're lifting the holding on the whole of the property. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. That's what we're looking for this time.
So that being said, Mayor Todd, my concern stands in terms of the balance of the property is that perhaps we could see a different form of development that would take advantage of the full municipal service that we have here, and we could see some higher density development there to take advantage of the municipal services there. Thank you.
Did you want to comment on that? I mean,
Chair, we're happy to reach out to the applicant or proponent to request that discussion and initiate some of that. So staff are happy to reach out and initiate that. There might be some discussion with respect to ingress and egress and access and servicing, but we can certainly initiate, staff are happy to initiate that discussion with a proponent and owner of the subject lands.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
thank you. It's a point well made. All right. Any other questions or first comments on this one? I have a resolution as follows, that North Perth Council receives the report dated July 8th, 2024, entitled North Perth Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z08-2024, submitted by R.J. Burnside on behalf of Killam REIT, affecting lands described as Part Lot 42 and 43, Concession 1 Elma Ward in North Perth, municipally known as 5651 Perth Line 86. and that North Perth Council approves Z 8-2024 to remove a holding provision affecting lands described as Concession 1, Lot 42 and 43, Elma Ward, municipally known as 5651 Perth Line 86, Municipality of North Perth. Moved by Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstad. Any discussion or debate further? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break. I hope Mr. Richardson is still my buddy for having to sit it out 5 minutes so that we can refresh ourselves, and we'll come back at 8:45. Let's get the microphone on. That will help too. Let's turn our attention now to item 9.2 on our agenda, reports from the operations department. There's one report actually tonight, so I should just say report. As item 9.2.1, council has before it a report from North Perth Drainage Superintendent Scott Richardson about the opportunity to develop a new tile drain in the southeast part of Trowbridge. It's not every day that we get a request for a new drain, so I'm looking forward to the story and the background and anything we need to know. Mr. Richardson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the rest of council. The purpose of this report is for council to consider a Section 4 from the Drainage Act for a new tile drain, like you said, in the southeast of Trowbridge. The outlet will provide, the proposed outlet, this will provide outlet for a proposed subdivision currently being developed by Bimania Dairy Limited. The request for Section 4 of the Drainage Act was received on June the 7th. From Bimania Dairy Limited, owners of part lots 6 and 7, concession 3. They require a stormwater management plan and a new outlet for their development. Therefore, a tile of sufficient capacity should service the property. The new tile will be approximately 375 meters in length, with the outlet being an open channel known to be the Burnett Municipal Drain. And again, we'll remind you that municipal drains are designed to OMAFRA's standard 1.5-inch drain coefficient, meaning the drains can accommodate 1.5 inches of rainfall in a 24-hour period. The stormwater management design will need to account for the the swim design will need to account the agriculture design be required to throttle back their site flows with the proposed pond. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Richardson. Any questions or first comments on this matter? Not seeing any, so I have a resolution as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 4 of the Drainage Act, proceeds with a request for a new municipal drain to be named at a later date. That sounds exciting. Further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoints K-Smart Associates Limited to investigate, design, and prepare a report for the new drain. Moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
All right, next up is item 9.3, a report from the Strategic Initiatives Department. In item 9.3.1, Council is asked to update the municipality's social media and website policy in response to work done and supported by the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee. As Ms. McLean is the committee's staff partner, we will hear from her about this proposed update. Ms. McLean, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Council. I have a fairly short report tonight for you. So, as the Mayor mentioned, the purpose of this report is to recommend revisions to the municipality's current social media and website policies for alignment with a current initiative of the North Perth DEI Advisory Committee. So for a bit of background, the committee wishes to recognize, educate, and raise awareness of days of significance that are important to our diverse community. And the list of these days that have been approved by the committee is attached to the report. The plan is for, on a monthly basis, the days occurring in that month would be posted on the municipality's social media accounts, as well as on the website with messaging promoting inclusivity and community belonging. So in order to align with our policies, we've gone through the social media and website policies and put in some recommended revisions, and those are attached to the report and track changes. Just to note, the most significant revision is to include language that some cultural events with historical religious roots that are relevant to our community may be promoted or recognized on the municipality's accounts or websites, and the remainder of the revisions are mostly just updating language and making some small changes. So I can answer any questions that council may have.
All right, thank you, Ms. McLean. Colleagues, any questions or first comments on this matter? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Hopefully you can hear me better. Thanks very much for the report. I have a couple questions here, just and not to go into too much detail, but I noticed on the list of different dates of significance, there's quite a list, obviously. And for example, I noticed that there's the winter solstice is specifically mentioned, but not knowing whether why we don't have the other three solstices mentioned there. I don't know if there's a specific significance in terms of winter solstice. And then likewise, there's just a couple of typos. September 10th should be World Suicide Prevention Day, I think. And frankly, I just don't know if this is all-inclusive, and whether the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Committee actually looked at whether the school board perhaps has a similar list or other list. I'm just not sure that this is all-encompassing of every list. I take it must be. But I notice it doesn't go into any specific details, for example, about some other Christian events like Advent or Lent and that sort of thing, whereas many others are mentioned. So perhaps through you, there could be some comment. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your comments. This was a discussion amongst the committee, and this list was discussed at many of our meetings, and it was acknowledged amongst the committee that this list isn't final, and it's going to change, and there's going to be things added as we get more community input on it. To note on your point about the school board, we did utilize the school board's resource that they're currently using for their days of significance and studied that. We also looked at some of the population demographics for our community that was collected by the Social Research Planning Council and did a public survey. So I think as we keep working on this initiative, we'll get more suggestions from the community and this list will grow. This is kind of a starting point to get the committee, they wanted to act on something, so this was kind of their first project to move forward with. But we definitely realize that there's more things to be added.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Anstedt.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you. Thanks, Jessica, for the reports. A lot of great work went into this and a lot of work with the committee. I'm just wondering if you can speak to, obviously, Councillor Rothwell talked about there's a lot on this list. I'm just wondering if you can kind of share a little bit about how this will be rolled out in terms of when we approach a day of significance, if you can just tell us a little bit about how that's going to be shared. Thank you.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question. So at this time, we have created a social media graphic that will be posted at the beginning of each month. And along with that graphic will be the list of dates for the month that is coming forward. And then also there will be a page created on the municipal website that will have these dates listed all throughout the year. And the committee plans to enhance that page by adding resources, background information on the dates, because we realize by looking at this list, not everyone's going to know exactly what the dates are. So trying to provide a bit more of educational resources towards that.
Thank you.
Anyone else with questions or comments? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Jessica. Great report. Just a suggestion for more dates, not that we need a longer list, but maybe in coordination with Councillor Nordham and the Ag Economic, we could get some of the important agriculture dates on here, Food Freedom, World Milk Day, those kind of dates as well. Thank you.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, the intent is to provide a form or a mechanism at the website so that members of the community can nominate or suggest events that can be added as appropriate. So, okay. Anyone else with questions or first comments? I have a resolution then as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the revised Municipality of North Perth social media policy and municipal website policy as presented. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kellum. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McLean. Let's turn to item 9.4. This is reports from the Corporate Services Department. As item 9.4.1, Council is asked to authorize the acceptance of credit cards for certain municipal services, payment of those services, and in accord with transaction limits and some exceptions. In part, this is to facilitate implementation of our new software to support programming, bookings, childcare scheduling, and facility rentals. I'll call on Deputy Treasurer Adam Seifert to bring us information about this recommended action and its consequences. Welcome to your first report to Council, Mr. Seifert.
Why, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Mayor and Council. With the anticipated implementation of the new Univeris software to help improve customer service around North Perth's facilities and program scheduling, one further area that may be impacted is with regards to opening up the municipality to accept credit card payments more widely. To support the customer service improvement, it was determined that accepting credit card payments for more services in more of our locations would be beneficial for the residents of North Perth. Having said that, the acceptance of credit cards does come with a cost to the municipality. Each transaction has a credit card fee that the municipality must pay. As part of the process, the municipality reviewed our options to ensure that we were minimizing the costs as best as possible. It is estimated that these fees would equal approximately $45,000 for the first full year. The bulk of these costs, as broken down in your packages, would be for facilities bookings and childcare programs. For your information, the costs were not budgeted for 2024 and would have to be absorbed under the 2024 budgets. The goal would be to budget for these costs in 2025 while also reviewing the cost of programs with the goal of recovering the costs moving forward. We are asking for the council to authorize the acceptance of credit card payments for select services with the goal of regulating the costs of credit card fees. Transaction limits would be imposed at levels determined by the treasurer. In addition, we ask that staff be directed to incorporate credit card processing fees into the 2025 operating budget. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Seifert. Colleagues, questions or first comments? Councillor Nordholm, let me get your microphone here. Go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Thanks for the report. I'm just curious, do we accept debit card for some of our services, such as landfill, childcare?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We currently accept payments at our locations through cash, check, or debit. There is a possibility to pay through credit card for some programs online through the portal, but with the implementation of the Univeris software, most of it needs to be facilitated right in the program, so that's kind of what's provided the impetus to do this, and it just allows a better opportunity for North Perth to look to the future for more e-commerce opportunities as they arise.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. In your presentation, you noted that the cost would be about $40-some thousand that we would have to, well, we would accommodate that and kind of build that in, but we would be actually absorbing some of that cost for the last, Q3 and early Q4. I'm just wondering why we're implementing this now instead of waiting until, January 1st, where we could, have that all budgeted in properly and not have to absorb so much of this cost. Just a thought.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question. Great idea. I think the main focus for introducing the Univeris software is to try and have it in place for the new school year and for the upcoming winter facility season. So that would help get it off the ground, and we'll be able to work out some of the kinks before launching or before the new year.
Okay. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through you, thanks very much, Adam, for your first report here, and welcome to North Perth. I note on the first page under the comments, you discuss regarding Moneris. I presume, through the Ontario Education Collaborative Marketplace. So, through this report, are we or has staff already accepted that we're using Moneris, or do we have to put this out through a tender process? Thank you.
like Treasurer Romani is going to join us at the podium.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. So we're already a member of that association, so we're exempt from any additional procurement practices. That collaborative already had 3 vendors of record, and we explored all 3 options, and Moneris was the significantly cheaper of all 3 options.
Good. Thank you very much, both. Appreciate that, and it's good to see we're getting good value, and it's great to be part of that cooperative. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I have a resolution then for consideration as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorizes the acceptance of credit card payments for select services and transaction limits as established by the Treasurer, and further that staff be directed to incorporate credit card processing fees into the 2025 operating budget. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. We will be implementing some credit card transactions in the new software and for certain services. Thank you. I keep thinking we need to have like a confetti balloon above the podium, and after each staff first report to council, we drop confetti and congratulate them. Thank you. Congratulations.
I would have appreciated that, but I do understand we're not there yet.
All right. Budget for 2025, exactly. Yeah. There we go. All right, next up is item 9.5, reports from the Facilities Department. In item 9.5.1, Council receives a report that it requested about the possibilities of lighting the Listowel bocce courts to support a longer season of play into the fall. Staff have now considered what might be involved and are here tonight to give Council its options with a recommendation to deny the request. Mr. Newell, welcome.
Yes, the club did request to have lights installed at the bocce courts, specifically when it gets dark in the late season. They do have some players that have limited evening vision, and it could be problematic for them, and they do lose some participation at that time. We did look at a couple of different lighting products that could have been used to address the situation there. The price ranged from $25,000 to $32,000. The cost benefit of the solution is not favorable given that the high cost of lighting and the number of times that it would actually be used or required. And so if council does wish to move forward with the request, we would need to plan to put it in the budget for the upcoming year. But at this point, the recommendation is that they deny the request for the additional lighting.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newell. Questions or first comments from council? Okay. So I have a resolution then for our consideration as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth denies the request from Listowel Bocce Ball Club to have lighting installed at the Listowel Bocce Courts. Can I call for a mover on this one? Moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Mr. Newell, stay with us, of course. We have a few more from you. In item 9.5.2, Council receives a report from staff subsequent to receipt of correspondence from a resident about improving the state of Livingston Park in Listowel. Mr. Newell, you're back with us to tell us about that and the proposal to add something in the 2025 budget, I think. So if you'd take that away.
Yes, so council directed staff to bring a report forward regarding potential upgrades to the park based on the correspondence received. The Livingston Park is located at 175 Livingston, which is at the corner of Livingston and Elma near the Listowel Library. The parcel of land is approximately 200 meters squared or half an acre. And this park has had a renovation in the last 25 years, which seems like a long time ago, but in the history of parks, it's really not that long ago. The current amenities include a small play structure, benches, a walkway, green space, and trees. The play structure is outdated with limited features, and an improvement to accessibility would be required as well. 2024 will see the addition of playground equipment at Memorial Park, Wallace Optimus Park, Atwood Lions Park, MAP 59, and the refurbishment of the Ward Subdivision Park. These projects represent a significant investment in park infrastructure. So if we use recent historical park projects as a measurement of cost, so if we look at the Wallace Park as similar in size and scope to what we would do there, we're looking at somewhere between $400,000 to $500,000 range to improve amenities, trees, walkways, pathways, whatever. So that is that would be the estimate, but without an architect, it's difficult for us to tell if it's, we don't have community input or anything at this point. We do see that the park does need improvements, and we're feeling that it should be budgeted in coming years to meet the changing needs of that community as the downtown core will change over time, but it's something that we should plan in our budgeting process, whether it be not necessarily next year, but in the budget for next year in our 5 to 10 year forecast.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Newell. Questions or first comments from council? I have a question. Have we thought, I mean, there's been some talk for some time about an outdoor public washroom somewhere in the downtown area of Listowel. Have we thought that perhaps Livingston Park, given its proximity to the trail, might be a good location for the installation of an outdoor washroom?
Yeah, that would, bathrooms always seem to be a topic of discussion whenever we put in parks, but the need for something in the downtown core, that may make sense to actually put a washroom facility in what is really a very small park, but that would significantly raise the dollar figure of that park as well, right? But if it's a need, it's a need, right? So.
Certainly something that people ask about, and something that has some controversy attached to it too, certainly, but just worth our thought as we move forward. Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Through you to Jeff, thanks for your report. I'm just wondering, depending on council's decision here tonight, Jeff, perhaps you could have conversation with Lydia Van Gils, and so I believe she's the one that raised the issue as in noting your report, so that she's aware and her group are aware in terms of council's direction.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, anyone else with questions or comments? All right, I have a resolution then that proposes, as Mr. Newell suggested, looking forward here, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to forecast the enhancement of Livingston Park as part of the 2025 capital budget process. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Newell. Next item, Council receives a report that it requested about the possibilities of implementing a community flagpole somewhere in Listowel. The report recommends not taking any further action on this, leaving the established use of the flagpole at the municipality's office as the usual option. Mr. Newell, one more crack at this.
Thank you. So yes, this is a report that was requested earlier. Staff did look at several potential locations and areas that offer good public exposure. First one being the municipal office, as it is a location that is used for ceremonies and remembrance and various other important community events. Adding an additional flagpole to this location would be I don't think it makes sense. You've already got 3 here and one that we can make use of. The roundabout at the intersection of Highway 23 and 86 was also considered as a possible location. Have some concerns around safety, that people could be distracted by the flag and not be navigating either as a pedestrian or as a motorist through that site and getting distracted by looking up at a flag. Should council choose to add a flagpole, the former PUC building on Main Street could be considered. This location is a focal point for residents and visitors as it houses the Chamber of Commerce, 2 current flagpoles, and a prominent advertising sign. The site would also be suitable for ceremonies as a gathering space on the lawn. That being said, there is cost associated with the purchase of a flagpole. It would be $3,000 approximately. If we are looking at doing 3 poles in one set, your price would be $9,000 if you're looking to do the PUC location. All that to be said, though, is the recommendation is that not to proceed with the installation of a community flagpole at this time, rather use the one that is currently used at the municipal office.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newell. Questions or first comments? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kasenberg. After a little, how should I say this? I guess I'm a little surprised that I think that a community flagpole is quite important. There's an awful lot of different events come at any given time. It could be Remembrance Day, it could be Patty Fest. And I think if there was actually a community flagpole, it would allow more options for flags to be flown. On the other hand, on the report, I don't agree that the other two flagpoles at the PUC need to be replaced. On second thought, I was a favor of the roundabout, but I do like the PUC location. But the other 2 flagpoles, in my opinion, don't need to be changed. A possible amendment to that would be to the immediate west of the PUC building. There's a big open field just before the trail, and it's still on the PUC property. It's not a field, but there's the PUC building and a whole bunch of grass. And right in the middle of that area that I think it's a dedicated pole strictly for community spirited and properly vetted flags. The gardens out front of the PUC are currently maintained by the Listowel Horticultural Society, that if they wanted to put a little garden around the flagpole, they could certainly do so, and it'd be much more conducive for raising and lowering the flag as necessary, making changes than the roundabout. So that is a better idea. So I think it's important to do that. We don't need to replace all 3. I'd like to see one go in, and that I think that PUC location is suitable. And one thing, if I might, just as a secondary comment, just given, and thank you for the report. However, as Councillor Duncan had brought this forward a couple of times and was quite adamant that he would like to, wanted the report come forward, and had mentioned it quite a while ago, that I would like to get his comment on it, that you've given my 2 cents. I'd actually like to hear from Councillor Duncan, and seeing as we can't tonight, I'd like to possibly, for council to consider, possibly defer this until next meeting.
Okay, thank you. I will be absent next meeting, and so that creates, we're going to have that sort of staggered absence, and I think it's the call of the staff working with me to set the agenda. So this was here tonight. I'm not sure I'm wild about your proposal, to be honest, to move this, to defer this, but I would accept certainly the will of my colleagues if that's what you want to do. Finding a meeting when all 10 of us will be here, right?
And I get that. Yeah. And I totally understand. I just thought that he had brought it forward. If it's not convenient and it's going to be, we can't waffle on this forever. Like, we can either make a decision or whatever. And I can certainly respect and appreciate that.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and thank you, Councillor Richardson, for all your comments, and I agree with them 100% as well. We've been weighing in on this now for quite some time, and it was Councillor Duncan, I believe, that asked or requested the report. So even if Mayor Kasenberg is not at the next meeting, we can put it off down the road. Try to pick a date when, especially he is here, because he did ask for this report. So I would second the motion to defer this report until he is in attendance. Thank you.
Colleagues, it sounds like there's a mover and a seconder.
I'm okay with any date in the future where attendance doesn't have to be next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a different resolution on the floor than the one that's being considered then, which is to defer this to a future meeting. Can I have comments on this, colleagues? We'll consider that resolution because it's on the floor essentially. Councillor Andreessen.
If I may, through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, I just wondered if the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee has had an opportunity to comment about this. I'd be interested to hear how they feel about it, because they're representative of the community. And perhaps by deferring this could give more time for that committee to have a debate and discussion and provide some comments and thoughts to this council. Because perhaps that's what they're for, is to provide advice to us, because they're the voice of diversity and equity and inclusion in this community.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. Ms. McLean is with us. Ms. McLean, I saw you nodding your head. Did you want to offer any comment about the possibility of this being referred to the DEI committee for their evaluation and comments?
Through you, Mayor, yes, the DEI committee could review the policy and the report and provide comment. They'll be meeting again in September, so it would be just a little bit of a wait for that to happen.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. Everyone understand that? Councillor Johnston.
But if we defer without a date, then we're fine to wait until the diversity committee can comment. So I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Councillor Anstett.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, through you. And this isn't related to that, but just one question I'd have about your report, Jeff. Thanks for the report. Just about the location at the PUC building, you did mention the $3,000 per pole for a 25 to 30 foot aluminum pole. If we were to move forward with this, any idea on timeline for installation? Like if we defer this and then what are we talking about to get a flagpole?
I have no idea what the base of the structure is. Like if we get into frost and everything else, it may get pushed back, but I don't know what the installation looks like on something like that.
Okay. Sorry, supplemental, Mayor Kaysenberg. I'm fine with deferring. If we get pushed this too far, then we're into winter and then we're, right? Thank you.
Councillor Andreessen, second crack at this.
I have another question for Mr. Newell, if that's okay, through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. In your report, I'm not really clear about whether this proposal is to replace our current policy of flying flags here as well. So would they only be flown at the new location or would they be both flown here at this location as well as at the PUC building? What's the clarification on that?
Yeah, the basis of the report was to come back with collect information for locations and potential costs. But what I've put in here is the notion that it could be used here on our municipal one. If that is not putting in a flag pole, that would be the only one. If an additional flag pole gets put at, say, PUC or another location, that I would think that would be the only one and that it wouldn't be used here. But that would be just further discussions with staff and council.
Perhaps that's again part of the conversation with the DEI committee to, further understand how they feel about that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, we certainly have had some precedent of flags flying here at this location. Mm-hmm. And, the elegance of that solution is that it's at the heart of town and at the heart of essentially our municipal corporation's actions, right? For us to suddenly stop showing community flags here and move them to some other facility in the community, even if it's well placed, could send a very significant message to groups that have used that flag or that flagpole for their purposes, a message that I think would potentially run contrary to our own espoused policy on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I do have some grave concerns about shaking this up. I appreciate that there are other communities that have been trying to come to grips with this issue, and some have made choices in one direction and others in another direction, but I think we have to be very mindful. And it's not your issue, Mr. Newell, so much as it's Ms. McLean's issue and CAO Snell's issue about the implications of changing the policy and moving flags away from this central place, which is sort of the heart of the corporation, right? So that's worth our consideration. Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. But with all due respect, we also have citizens of this municipality that do not want the flag at the municipal building, and I respect them as well. So maybe we need to open this up to the public and get their opinion on it before we make a final decision.
Okay, anyone else with comment at this point? So we have a resolution. Okay, we do have some more comments. Let's go with Councillor Nordham first.
Just a question. Thanks to you. So we have 2 flagpoles at the PUC. Could we convert one of them to the community flagpole with no financial implications? Or how would that work?
You've got currently it's the Canadian flag there and the municipal flag. So you would have to take down the municipal flag, right? So.
Thanks for the.
Okay, anyone else? I mean, to some degree, this also opens up the issue of whether we need flagpoles for this purpose in other parts of the community, right? So we could have a flagpole at the EMCC in Atwood, for example, to also share our presence of community organizations there. Likewise, in Moncton, if we so chose. So I think there's some implications of some of this as well in terms of our urban areas of the community that perhaps can be further explored if we do delegate this to the DEI committee for their consideration. Okay, we have a resolution. It's to the effect that we refer this report to the DEI committee for their consideration. I think the clerk's table has this in order. Can we have a vote? Okay, Clerk Carter, go ahead.
So initially, it was that council defers a decision on the report for consideration at a future council meeting, and that was moved by Matt Richardson and by Doug Kellum. Do we want to add a second clause that it be referred to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee?
Okay, fair. So let's turn to the mover and seconder. Is that okay with both of you?
To be referred to the DI committee and then
come back to council. Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. You have text that supports that at this point? Okay, thank you. All right, then I would say we should have this vote, although for some reason I've been kicked out of eScribe. So let me get back in. All right, I think we could probably have that vote, or is anyone else experiencing eScribe problems at this point? Everyone on? Okay, let's try and see what happens. No, it's not coming up for me, so I vote in favor of the deferral, or the referral, actually, it's a referral. And I think with that, oh, now it shows up. There we go. With that, that is carried. Thank you. All right, thanks, Mr. Newell. Busy night for you. Let's turn next to item 10 on our agenda. Any colleagues, any reports that you'd like to ask of staff or of our committees? Not seeing any there, so let's move on to item O. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Kasenberg.
I note that the County of Perth has given notice of upcoming open houses regarding our county official plan in July. I note that they're in Perth East and West Perth, but none are in North Perth specifically. There are dates that are property owners can make appointments here locally or at other municipal offices. What I would like council to consider as to whether this council would like to have a presentation by the Perth County Planning Department regarding the proposal and the specifics regarding the impact here in North Perth in terms of designations. And I raised this issue before at the meeting we had back in February, I believe it was. There was some mapping that was newly released, at least to me, regarding designated land areas, and I'm not. I'm of the opinion that planning staff should have a presentation to this council regarding the specifics proposed under the official plan, so that this council then can make its recommendation through to county council for its consideration. Because to this point, we have not, as I understand, made a recommendation as to whether or not this council is totally in favor of all the policy and mapping implications as proposed.
This has been such a long and complex issue that I'm not even sure where to begin in terms of providing comments on this. I know that they have planned the day, July 22nd, as a full consultation day with opportunity for the public and for councils and councillors to attend. And unfortunately, I'll be out of the country on that occasion, but I know that the majority of county councillors will also be in attendance at both of those sessions, as I understand it. So there is opportunity for anyone who has concerns at this point. I have a certain wariness, I guess, and maybe it's a different perspective, Councillor Rothwell, on whether this council needs to be giving input from it as a corporate entity to the county with regards to the official plan. I'm not sure that that's needed at this point. I'm not sure that other councils are considering that in the county, but I'm looking to Deputy Warden Kellum if he has any comments on that. Certainly open the microphone for you next if you want to comment. But we're at a pretty important consultative phase that has a public space for all. And certainly planners, staff members of the County of Perth planning team have booked time in each of the municipalities for the purposes of answering questions, looking at specific parcels even for the sake of trying to identify whether mapping is accurate and more. So I appreciate that could be one path. It doesn't appear to be the path or the plan that the county has in mind at this point for moving forward with the process that will take us to an approval decision point. And I'm not sure that it's going to be easy to change that at this point without a county council resolution saying, hey, let's ask the lower tiers for their comments, which is at this point largely not in the intent, and largely because the mayors have been involved in the entire process and a grueling process that has been. So, I mean, as colleagues, we can choose our path, how we want to interact with the county. We can tell them by poking them in the eye that we want more information and we want a presentation from them. But I'm not sure that that's the stage we're at this point. And the answer, I suspect strongly, is that the public meetings are the opportunity for any of us to attend and get information as well. Let me ask Deputy Mayor Kellum and Deputy Warden Kellum, more importantly, if he has any comments to make on this one, because he sits in on county meetings that I'm not part of as well. So,
through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and yes, you are correct with all of your comments. I'm not even sure, Councillor Rothwell, that the planning department even wanted to have this final open house, but we strongly suggested it. So, since our last public meetings, the questions and concerns and comments have really been significantly less. And what we've been asking people, if they're out, like I'm just speaking for myself, but what we're asking the residents of Perth County, if there is a specific application that you are concerned about or need questions to be answered, then you are supposed to reach out to them, and they will. And they have done several, I think hundreds, responses back like that. So I don't think we're going to come to council again. You can ask for it, but I think we're at a stage now, as Mayor Kasenberg said, that we'll have one more open house and then go from there.
Thank you very much, both Mayor and Deputy Mayor, for your comments. My concern is this, is that because of my involvement on the professional side, working for the County of Perth when we had our first ever county official plan in 1997, when it was adopted, what we were doing then was we were taking 11 official plans plus 3 urban areas, Listowel, Mitchell, and Milverton, and having one official plan that covered them, plus ended up 3 secondary plans. Presentations were made to each and every council directly, and sign-offs were by every municipal council, and there were appeals. There was an appeal specifically on a mapping issue, which North Perth had, as well as a specific policy issue, which North Perth had at the time, and that ended up being resolved. But it was a council decision in terms of the issues that they were dealing with. And I'll be frank that when we were at the meeting at I was at the meeting at the Steve Kerr, as well as many others, is that when the mapping was shown in terms of some of the areas on the south side of Line 84, for example, as well as on the east side of Tremere Avenue South, I was surprised. I would have thought, frankly, that there would have been a presentation by planning staff in terms of where this council felt appropriate growth would be located, and that's my expectation. And clearly, that's not there. But what I will also say is that what I heard loud and clear, and I think all county councillors that were at the meeting, as well as staff, is that it is important that any presentation that's made at these upcoming meetings is in person, and that there will be direct response to comments that are made. It was loud and clear that people were frankly unhappy that the main presenter was online and was frankly less than forthcoming in terms of comments because of some technical issues that we were having. I would certainly hope that if that same process is followed, that the technology better not fail us, because these are crucial issues going forward. I'm also well aware that the group that was very adamant before, their website seems to have been less active, but I suspect it may become more active between now and the 3rd week of July. So I'm hoping for success for everyone, because this is a crucial issue for us. We've been working on before I retired, and I've been retired at the end of this July for 5 years. So this has been a long time coming, and we're hopeful that this is going to rectify or bring up to date our policies, but there are policies that are proposed that are significantly different under the new plan as opposed to what is currently there. And I still, to this point, I don't think all members of council are aware of that. So that was my comment. So if this council wishes to have a specific request to the county, then so be it. And if they choose not to do that, that's county council's direction. But I believe that it would be important to take that opportunity, not just here, but perhaps others, but here at least, if council agrees, that we should have that comment and presentation on a significant plan. Thank you.
Thanks. I think, again, if this council wants to request that, I'm of the opinion now that that we need to get this to a vote at the county council table, and it needs to happen before the end of this year. And the longer we go by stretching out into additional consultations and reports and presentations, the less likely that is to be. And to me, I can tell you honestly, there are things that are missing from the official plan draft that, especially around affordability, that I would love to stick my feet into this mud and say, I insist that we do it. But in the interests of the fact that all of the municipalities around the table want to see this change and acknowledge that it's a plan that will have some progressive opportunity to make changes and amendments after it's ratified, as we see from the environment and the landscape. I'm not sure that I think we should throw a wrench into the spokes. I know that maybe sounds a little authoritative. I don't know. I don't want to sound that way or authoritarian, but I think that we're at a stage where we need to get this done. And I suspect, frankly, that a request from North Perth would be considered by County Council, but I suspect it would also be rejected by County Council because of the interest in getting to the end point. With that said, there is prime opportunity, and I don't have it here, it's in my office, but certainly the documents are available, the studies are available, all the materials now are available, including the general public map viewers, so that everyone can look at their parcel of land, their property, and see whether there's significant change through the layers in the GIS. They've created video to instruct people on how to use the GIS system at the county so that people will not get stuck with the technology, and they've made the offer that anyone can reach out to the county and be walked through it or talk about it or any of those kind of things. So I mean, if amongst us as colleagues, we want to initiate a resolution that says, please come and talk to us some more, fine, but I'm not wild about it. I don't think it will get too far. I'm being honest about it. Councillor Rothwell, go ahead. Let's wrap this up, though.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. I don't want to belabor the point here, but I think the crucial issue is this, is that of any municipality in Perth County, North Perth is growing substantially. We have waited and waited and waited, sometimes patiently, sometimes not, in terms of having the additional lands come within specifically designated area to allow for residential, commercial, industrial growth. We have waited for that time. We have talked about affordable housing. We have made direct pitches to County Council to deal with affordability and to come on board with community improvement and so on, to be a partner. I'm not saying that the answer is no on that, because I don't think that we've necessarily put the point forward. But we need a partner that realizes that North Perth is experiencing significant growth and we have nowhere else to put it until we get these designated land areas. So frankly, the request that I'm making, and I've made it before, is that why North Perth isn't maybe the number one stop, or at least one of the 4 stops that should have been made years ago, to talk specifically about our needs here as a council. And I appreciate the mayor's direct involvement as well as our CAOs, but the other 9 of us haven't heard it. And that's my concern. So I have done my work. I have read the plan. This is one of the things I've done for well over 30 years. But this county official plan is our official plan that guides our growth and development in our municipality. And when Joe and Jane Public come and talk to us about what they're experiencing, and we don't know, because perhaps we didn't read that far or understand the intent, that's what I'm concerned about. So we can tell our public to talk to staff, which I personally have done. But at the end of the day, somebody needs to close the loop here. So I stand behind the request for a report, and if council agrees, fine, and if county council delivers, great. If they don't, well, so be it, and we'll move on. I, like you, want to see the plan approved soon. There's no guarantee that once the county council adopts this in the fall, that we're going to see the province approve this forthwith. I am very thankful that we're well beyond the days where the Minister of Municipal Affairs will undo or go beyond what our local municipal approval authority, being the county, had incorporated, such as the Region Waterloo, City of Ottawa, and elsewhere, where they included lands that were in no one's radar other than the provinces. So I stand by the request, and if council agrees, so be it, and otherwise, so be it too. Thank you.
So I think we have a resolution then that's brought forward from Councillor Rothwell inviting the county planning team to bring a presentation to North Perth Council. Do you want to narrow the topic that is spoken about by them?
Specifically regarding significant policy changes which are of concern to North Perth, and whether that's as and to deal with mapping issues of change. I think that's the issue that the two issues that I would suggest would be important. I could perhaps come up with additional comments or concerns, but the mapping issue in terms of growth development would be probably the top priority. And then secondly is any policies of significant change. Thank you.
Okay. So clerk's table, you have a resolution to that effect? All right. Can I call for a seconder? Okay. Seconded by Councillor Johnston. Any further discussion or debate on this one? Clerk's table, you ready for? Okay, let's have a vote. We're missing one, yeah. All right, so that's carried. We will send a request to the county to that end. All right. Anyone else with reports they'd like to ask of staff or the committees? All right. For item 11, we have received 2 items of correspondence beyond stuff that we've already dealt with in our consent agenda for our disposition. The first is from the Listowel Farm and Maker Market, which has asked for permissions to waive fees for the use of 2 picnic tables and to have said delivered by staff to the site on multiple dates from essentially now till the early part of October. I think there's a resolution here. All right. As follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves a request from Shelley Bus to waive the fees for the use of 2 picnic tables, including delivery and pickup, at the Listowel Farm and Maker Market on the following days: July 13th, July 27th, August 10th, August 24th, September 7th, September 24th, and October 5th of 2024. Can I call for a mover on this? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that's carried. Let's turn to item 11.2. Note that Councillor Andreessen has left the chamber for her declared interest in this matter. For 11.2, we've received correspondence from the Listowel Agricultural Society seeking support for use of municipal picnic tables, including delivery to and removal from the fairgrounds for the duration of this year's Listowel Agricultural Fair. The motion looks like this: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from the Listowel Agricultural Society for in-kind support for the 2024 Listowel Fair from July 18th, 2024 to July 21st, 2024, as follows: use of municipal picnic tables, including delivery to the fairgrounds and pickup for return. Moved by Deputy Mayor Callum, seconded by Councillor Nordum. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Do we have any idea about how many picnic tables they need? I noticed in our last request they said 1 or 2, but I presume that we need 100 or whatever the number is. So,
I don't know what the number is, but someone's going to be busy moving picnic tables, is my guess.
Same number as before, but
yeah,
just as long as our staff know that. Thank you.
Fair enough. All right. Anyone else with questions or comments? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. If we can invite Councillor Andreessen back into the room. All right, at this point, we turn to consideration of bylaws that have been recommended to us for action. Tonight, we have for our consideration a total of 5 bylaws. The enabling resolution outlines for each bylaw their number and purpose. Before I read the resolution for passing these bylaws, does any councillor wish to extract one or more of them for a more fulsome consideration or an individual recorded vote? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor. Item 12.3, the Canada Community Building Fund Agreement, and it's only to know exactly what it's for. So, I mean, I read the agreement, and frankly, I don't know what program it's for. Thank you.
Treasurer Romani, do you know what it's for? Sometimes these things, they're given to us in confidence, right? We have to act in public session, but we can't really say what it's for until the government announces it. Treasurer Romani?
It is involving the Canada Community Fund funding. It's an all-tier funding agreement, and that seeks the authorization over the next, I believe it's 5 years. But effectively, so it just
authorizes us to receive the funding from AMO.
Yeah. Good, thanks very much. It's just sometimes it would be great if we actually had a report that went along with this to tell us that, but I appreciate that we have to do that, and sometimes we can't know it, but it was just good to know. Thank you.
Indeed. All right. Anyone else wanting to pull anything or change anything about this resolution, or we'll consider it in aggregate? All right, as follows, that the following bylaws are hereby passed. 37-2024 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 6-ZB-1999 as amended. 47-2024 being a bylaw to authorize the appointment of a chief building official. 50-2024 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a municipal funding agreement with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. 54-2024 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 138-2023 as amended, and 56-2024 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 6-ZB-1999 as amended. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nordum. I think I saw your hand anyway. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 13 on our agenda. It's item 13.1. Do any councillors wish leave to give notice of motion this evening? Councillor Nordum has made me aware of his interest, so let's go.
Thanks, Mayor Kiesenberg. Sorry I didn't get this in the agenda on time. Our council has made a bit of a ruckus on this corner before, and I think that we should make a bit of noise about it again, otherwise known as main corners. So I'll read our motion into the record. Whereas the corner known as main corners has been accustomed to many accidents, close calls, injuries, and unfortunately fatalities, and whereas improvements have been made in the past, but further improvements must be made to prevent accidents and injuries and fatalities in the future, and whereas further improvements such as a roundabout are costly and must be budgeted for over a period of time. So now therefore be resolved that the Municipality of North Perth Council asks Perth County Council to request further review of the intersection Perth Line 88 and 178, otherwise known as main corners.
Thank you, Councillor Nordum. That would be considered normally at the next meeting of council, and so the clerk is giving indication that that will be on the agenda next time. Any other notice of motion efforts tonight? Okay, that brings us to item 14 on our agenda. Are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you. I have one highlighting some of our dairy herds. As we know, we have a rich dairy history in North Perth. So the Lac to Net, which is the Ontario and Western Canada, publishes a book every year on the highest producing herds in each county and province. So I would highlight Perth County. And we have a tremendous group of herds in Perth, in North Perth. represented in here. I'm just going to highlight a few. The 15th highest producing herd in North Perth is owned by the fellow right beside me. So congratulations, Nord Creek. Sunnor Holsteins over at Moncton, the Bedards are the 14th. And then we move up to the 4th highest producing herd in Perth County is the Conibears at Conley Farms. Second highest producing herd in Perth County and the 19th highest in the province is the Dolsons and McMullins of Legacy Holsteins. But the highest producing herd in Perth County and also the highest producing herd in the province calls a little village of Gownstown home. Darquest Dairy Inc., which is owned by the Martin, Daryl Martin, and his dad Eli and his brother Andrew, are the highest producing herd in the province in 2023. So I just want to congratulate them and to highlight the great dairy industry in North Perth.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. What an amazing performance from so many different farmers and families in our community. Wonderful news. All right. Any other announcements? Councillor Andreessen?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. It's exciting to announce that our next fair, Listowel Fair by the Listowel Ag Society, will be hosted on July the 18th to the 21st with many great agricultural events and fireworks and competitions happening and a parade. So stay tuned to lots of announcements about those upcoming events. And if any councillors are interested in maybe flipping some burgers in the food booth, we'd appreciate hearing from you. We'll set you up on a schedule. So it's going to be a great event. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Andreessen. There is some news from Councillor Anstedt if he wishes to share it. Right? Let me.
Thanks very much, Mayor Kasenberg. Just on behalf of my wife and boys and our new child, I just want to thank council and staff for the warm wishes and the very thoughtful gift. Certainly was put to good use very quickly. And everyone's transitioning well. Everyone's happy and healthy, and her big brothers are very excited about their new titles. So thanks very much.
Fascinating. I don't think we've shared the name, if you don't mind.
Yes, sure. So her name's Meredith.
Meredith Anstedt. Wonderful name.
More for a ball team.
No comment.
Deputy Mayor Kellum encourages Councillor Anstedt to create a ball team. All right. Okay, thank you very much, and congratulations to the Anstedt family. We're delighted for you. That brings us to item 15 on our agenda. We have no matters for consideration in a closed session meeting of council this evening. That means that with regards to item 16 on our agenda, we have nothing to report about since no session was held. Council, we will note that Councillor Andreessen is leaving the chamber at this point. As a mandated good practice acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I'll read the resolution if I can turn the page in my book. So many bylaws, they're so thick. All right, here we go. As follows, that bylaw 55-2024, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, is hereby passed. Moved by Councillor Anstedt, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. And let's bring Councillor Andreessen back in for the grand finale. So we have completed deliberation and taken action on the business that did come before us tonight, and even a little bit more. So it's appropriate for us to consider adjournment at this time. I have a resolution to that effect. The council meeting adjourns at 9:54 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, July 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Anstedt. Not debatable. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Our next council meeting is Monday, July 15th, 2024. I will be absent as a result of vacation plans, and so Deputy Mayor Kellum will be in the chair. Until that time, council is adjourned.